The Bucket List, 2007, opens with Carter Chambers, played by Morgan Freeman, narrating the story of a man he came to know in the final months of his life. Edward Cole, played by Jack Nicholson. Carter introduces us to the concept of the bucket list, a list of things one wants to do before they kick the bucket. This initial framing pulls us into the heart of the film. Two men, facing terminal illnesses, deciding to live their remaining days to the fullest. The story kicks off in a hospital, where we meet both Carter and Edward under less than ideal circumstances. Carter, a blue-collar mechanic with a passion for trivia and a vast knowledge of history, has just received devastating news. He has cancer. Shortly after, Edward Cole, a wealthy and arrogant hospital owner, is also diagnosed with terminal cancer. Despite their vastly different backgrounds, these two men find themselves sharing a room in Edward's hospital, a result of Edward's own cost-cutting policy of 2 patients per room, regardless of their status. This shared hospital room becomes the unlikely setting for their bond to begin. At first, the two men clash due to their contrasting personalities. Edward is brash, opinionated, and unfiltered, while Carter is calm, thoughtful, and introspective. Their initial conversations are brief and somewhat tense, with Edward showing little patience for Carter's trivia and calm demeanor. However, as time passes and their shared battle with cancer unfolds, they begin to open up to each other. It's during these early interactions that Carter introduces the idea of the bucket list. A lifelong student of life, Carter had once dreamed of becoming a history professor, but life's responsibilities got in the way, and he settled into a steady job and family life. One day, he starts jotting down things he wanted to do before he dies. A bucket list. However, when he receives his terminal diagnosis, he crumples the list and throws it away, convinced that it's too late to fulfill any of those dreams. Edward, despite his gruff exterior, is intrigued by the idea. He's a man who has lived his life on his own terms, building a fortune but never truly connecting with people or experiencing the deeper joys of life. When he finds Carter's discarded list, Edward makes an unexpected proposal. They should complete the list together. With his wealth and resources, Edward believes they can accomplish everything on the list, and more. Carter is hesitant at first, still processing the reality of his illness, but Edward's infectious enthusiasm and the grim reality of their situation eventually win him over. This marks the start of their extraordinary adventure. Two men from completely different worlds, united by a shared fate, decide to seize the moment and live out their remaining days with a sense of purpose, humor, and courage. The hook of the movie is now fully established. This will be a journey of friendship, self-discovery, and a celebration of life in the face of death. Carter and Edward make the bold decision to leave the hospital and embark on their journey to complete the bucket list. Armed with Edward's immense wealth and Carter's thoughtful insights, the two men set out on a whirlwind adventure. Their first stop takes them skydiving, where Edward is giddy with excitement, while Carter, a man who's always preferred stability, is more hesitant. The scene is a mix of humor and fear, perfectly capturing their dynamic. Edward's thrill-seeking personality clashes with Carter's cautious nature, but the jump becomes a symbolic leap for both of them, into the unknown and into embracing life fully. From there, the duo checks off several bucket list items, including racing luxury cars on a speedway, visiting the pyramids in Egypt, and exploring the Taj Mahal. The movie takes the audience through a series of exotic and breathtaking locations, underscoring the grandeur of their adventure. But amidst the thrills and spectacular sights, the film delves deeper into the emotional journeys of both men. Carter, a man who has lived a life of quiet sacrifice for his family, begins to open up about the dreams he never pursued. As they sit by a campfire under the stars in Africa, he talks about his unfulfilled dream of becoming a history professor and his longing for deeper intellectual and spiritual experiences. He also shares how he had always been the responsible one, taking care of his family while setting aside his own aspirations. His regrets are palpable, but his spirit remains resilient as he finds joy in ticking items off the bucket list. Edward, on the other hand, reveals the cracks beneath his brash, confident exterior. Despite his wealth and power, Edward has lived an isolated and often lonely life. He's been married multiple times, has an estranged daughter, and has always put business above personal relationships. In one of the more poignant scenes, Edward reflects on his estrangement from his daughter and how his stubborn pride and selfishness drove them apart. The bucket list for Edward becomes more than just a thrill-seeking adventure. It's a chance for him to reassess the relationships he's lost and the legacy he'll leave behind. As they travel together, the bond between Carter and Edward deepens. They begin to see each other not just as companions on an adventure, but as friends who bring balance to each other's lives. Carter helps Edward see that life is about more than just accumulating wealth and power, while Edward encourages Carter to break free from his cautious nature and truly live. The movie uses these moments of humor and reflection to explore deeper themes of mortality, regret, and reconciliation. Each location they visit serves as a backdrop for the lessons they are learning about themselves and each other. From standing on the Great Wall of China to enjoying quiet moments of reflection, Carter and Edward begin to confront the truths of their lives. The dreams they let go of, the relationships they abandoned, and the choices that shaped their paths. But as their journey continues, the reality of their terminal illnesses looms larger. Both men know that their time is limited, which adds an emotional weight to their adventures. The bucket list is not just about checking off activities. It's about finding peace and meaning in their remaining days. Carter and Edward's journey becomes more than just a checklist of adventures. It becomes a path towards self-discovery and emotional healing. The deeper they go into their travels, the more their conversations shift from surface-level banter to heartfelt discussions about life, death, and what truly matters. They begin to confront the personal regrets that have been weighing on them for years, each learning valuable lessons from the other along the way. One of the more touching moments comes when Carter encourages Edward to reconnect with his estranged daughter. Edward, however, is resistant, claiming it's too late to make amends. He brushes off the suggestion, saying that his daughter has moved on, and he refuses to be vulnerable. This reflects Edward's lifelong pattern of avoiding emotional risks, a theme that runs throughout the movie. Despite his wealth and power, Edward has built walls around himself, preferring to keep people at arm's length. Carter, who values family deeply, tries to convince Edward that it's never too late to seek forgiveness and repair broken relationships. Their conversation highlights the contrasting ways they've handled their personal lives. Carter with sacrifice and loyalty, and Edward with pride and avoidance. Carter, meanwhile, faces his own challenges. As much as he's enjoying the grand adventure, there's an underlying sadness in him. He reflects on his life and marriage, expressing his deep love for his wife, Virginia, but also admitting that there were things he never did for himself. One of the items on his bucket list is to witness something truly majestic, a moment of transcendence that goes beyond physical experiences. This speaks to Carter's desire for spiritual fulfillment, something he has yet to find despite his love for his family and his long life of responsibility. Their travels lead them to a breathtaking moment on the top of a mountain, where they take in a stunning view of the world below. As they stand there in silence, the weight of their journey and their impending deaths settles in. For Carter, this moment of peace and awe feels like the fulfillment of his desire to witness something majestic. Edward, however, is still restless, still searching for something he can't quite name. As their bucket list begins to wind down, they return to the United States, where Carter's health begins to deteriorate rapidly. Despite his worsening condition, Carter remains upbeat, cherishing the time he's spent with Edward and the lessons he's learned along the way. However, the looming reality of death begins to take its toll on both men. The adventures have been fun, but now they must confront the inevitable. Carter's illness forces Edward to face his own mortality in a way he hadn't before. As they sit together in the hospital, Carter reminds Edward that life isn't about avoiding pain or regret. It's about making the most of the time you have, no matter how short that time may be. Carter urges Edward to reconnect with his daughter, reminding him that the most important things in life aren't material but emotional and relational. In a particularly moving scene, Carter leaves Edward with a note, encouraging him to find the joy in his life. These words echo throughout the rest of the film, underscoring the central theme, that life's greatest treasures are found in the connections we make, the love we give, and the experiences that shape us. As Carter's health declines, Edward is left with the realization that their friendship has given him a second chance, not just to live fully, but to heal the wounds he's been carrying for so long. In the final stretch of the bucket list, Carter's health continues to worsen, and he passes away in a heart-wrenching scene. His death marks the emotional turning point for Edward, who is left to reflect on everything they've been through together. Carter's passing is not just a loss of a friend, but a reminder of the fleeting nature of life. It forces Edward to confront the regrets he has long buried, particularly his estranged relationship with his daughter. Carter's final words, urging Edward to find the joy in his life, echo in Edward's mind. For the first time, Edward understands that all the wealth and power he's accumulated mean little without meaningful connections. He realizes that the adventures they shared, skydiving, racing cars, seeing the wonders of the world, were only part of the journey. The real value of their bucket list was in the friendship they built and the lessons they learned about living authentically. Taking Carter's advice to heart, Edward finally gathers the courage to reach out to his daughter. It's a vulnerable moment for him. And though he's hesitant, Edward shows up at her door, flowers in hand, seeking reconciliation. In a quietly emotional scene, his daughter embraces him, signaling the start of healing and forgiveness. It's a powerful moment of closure, not just for Edward, but for the audience as well. After years of pride and avoidance, Edward is finally able to reconnect with his family, showing that it's never too late to make amends. As Edward moves forward with his life, we see him standing by Carter's grave, fulfilling one of the last items on their bucket list: help a complete stranger for the good. Edward has the grave placed on a beautiful mountaintop, next to a majestic tree, a tribute to Carter's wish to witness something truly majestic. This final act is Edward's way of honoring the profound impact Carter had on his life. In the film's closing moments, we hear Carter's narration once again, reflecting on the incredible journey they shared. He acknowledges that while they didn't accomplish every item on the list, they did something far more important. They found meaning in the time they had left. The bucket list wasn't about ticking off grand experiences. It was about discovering what truly matters in life: love, friendship, forgiveness, and joy. Edward's life is changed forever. He's no longer the gruff, self-centered businessman we met at the start of the film. Through his friendship with Carter, he's learned to value the simple but profound joys in life, reconnecting with his daughter, finding peace in the small moments, and ultimately, leaving behind a legacy of love and kindness. The film ends on a hopeful note, with Edward's transformation serving as a reminder that it's never too late to change, to forgive, and to live fully. The bucket list leaves us with a powerful message: that life's greatest treasures are not found in wealth or status, but in the relationships we build and the joy we find in the everyday moments that make life worth living.